Welcome to another episode of Explained by AI.
Today we're diving deep into the world of Bitcoin, especially for you younger listeners out there.
Yeah, we'll break it down and make it easy to understand.
It's all about this digital money stuff, Bitcoin, that's getting so important these days.
Like online money, right? But how does that even work?
Exactly. Think of it like this Bitcoin is money that only exists online. No banks, no governments involved.
Sounds like digital cash you can use to buy things online.
You got it. But here's the big question. How can we trust money that isn't backed by like a big institution?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
That's the mystery we're going to solve today with Bitcoin. The trust comes from something else, something called the blockchain.
Blockchain, that sounds complicated.
It might sound intimidating, but it's a pretty cool idea.
Yeah.
Imagine a giant digital notebook that keeps track of every Bitcoin transaction ever made.
Like a record book that everyone can see.
Exactly. And this record book, the blockchain, is shared by tons of computers all over the world. So it's virtually impossible for anyone to cheat or change the information.
Wait, so anyone can just look up all the Bitcoin transactions ever?
Absolutely. It's completely transparent, which is one of the things that makes Bitcoin so secure.
That's kind of mind-blowing.
It is pretty amazing.
So who decides which transactions get added to this blockchain notebook?
That's where Bitcoin miners come in. They're kind of like digital detectives who use powerful computers to solve super complex math problems.
Math problems. Sounds kind of boring.
It's more exciting than it sounds. Think of it like a huge digital puzzle competition miners race to solve these puzzles, and the winner gets to add a new block of transactions to the blockchain.
So they get a prize for solving the puzzle.
You bet they earn Bitcoin as a reward. That's actually how new Bitcoin is created.
So it's like a reward system for keeping the blockchain safe and secure.
Exactly. And because it takes so much computing power to solve these puzzles, it makes it super difficult for anyone to mess with the blockchain.
It sounds like a pretty clever system. But what happens if someone loses their Bitcoin? Like if they lose their phone or something?
That's a great question, and it leads us to Bitcoin wallets.
Wallets like the ones we use for our regular money.
Sort of a Bitcoin wallet is a digital storage space where you keep your Bitcoin safe.
So it's like a digital piggy bank for your Bitcoin.
You could say that, but remember, Bitcoin wallets come in different forms. Some are safer than others.
Wait a minute, so some wallets are more secure than others.
Exactly. Choosing a safe and reliable Bitcoin wallet is super important to protect your digital money.
This is starting to sound kind of serious.
It is. Think of it this way. Your Bitcoin wallet is like a treasure chest, and your private keys are the keys to unlock it.
Okay.
If someone gets your private keys, they can take all your Bitcoin.
So I need to guard those private keys with my life.
You got it. That's rule number 1 in the Bitcoin world. Keep your private keys safe and secret.
Okay, message received security is super important with this Bitcoin stuff.
Absolutely. And it's not just about protecting yourself from hackers. There are other risks to be aware of, too.
Like what? Well, you've probably heard about Bitcoin being used for illegal stuff, right?
Yeah, I've heard some stories about that.
It's true that Bitcoin's anonymity can be attractive for illegal activities.
Mm-hmm.
But remember, Bitcoin transactions are actually traceable on the blockchain.
So even if someone tries to use Bitcoin for something bad, they can still be caught.
Exactly. Law enforcement is getting really good at tracking Bitcoin transactions.
That's good to know.
Another risk to be aware of is how much Bitcoin's price can change.
Change? How do you mean?
It means the price of Bitcoin can go up and down a lot, and sometimes really quickly.
So it's like a roller coaster for your money?
Kinda. While that can be exciting for some investors, it also means you could lose money if the price drops.
That does sound kind of risky.
It's important to understand the risks before investing any money in Bitcoin. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme.
Okay, noted.
It's an investment.
So we've talked about the basics of Bitcoin, the blockchain, and how important security is. What else do I need to know? Well, remember earlier we mentioned that there are different versions of Bitcoin.
Yeah, you said something about Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin SV. What's that all about?
That's a great question, and it brings us to one of the most interesting things about Bitcoin. Its evolution.
Evolution, you mean Bitcoin can change?
Absolutely. As Bitcoin got more popular, people started having different ideas about how to improve it.
Like different features or upgrades.
Exactly. And those different ideas sometimes led to splits in the Bitcoin community, creating new versions of Bitcoin.
So it's like Bitcoin branching out in different directions.
That's a great way to put it. Each version has its own unique characteristics and goals.
Can you give me some examples?
Sure. Let's start with Bitcoin Cash. One of the challenges with the original Bitcoin was its limited block size.
Block size, you mean the blocks in the blockchain?
Yes. Each block can only hold a certain number of transactions, and as Bitcoin got more popular, those blocks started getting full, leading to slower transaction times and higher fees.
So it's like a traffic jam on the blockchain.
Exactly. To fix this, a group of developers proposed increasing the block size to allow for more transactions in each block.
That makes sense. Bigger blocks, more transactions, faster transactions.
Precisely, this proposal caused a split in the Bitcoin community. Some people supported the change and others didn't. The result was a hard fork creating Bitcoin Cash.
So Bitcoin Cash is basically Bitcoin with bigger blocks.
Essentially, yes. The people who like Bitcoin Cash believe that increasing the block size is the best way to make Bitcoin more scalable and better for everyday transactions.
Okay, I'm starting to get it, but what about Bitcoin SV? What's their deal?
Bitcoin SV stands for Satoshi's Vision. It was created in 2018 after another hard fork, this time from Bitcoin Cash.
Just like a fork of a fork.
You got it. The creators of Bitcoin SV believe that Bitcoin Cash strayed too far from the original vision of Satoshi Nakamoto, the mysterious creator of Bitcoin.
So they're trying to go back to the roots of Bitcoin?
That's the idea. They emphasize sticking to the original Bitcoin protocol and making it bigger through larger block sizes.
So bigger blocks are a key part of their vision too.
Absolutely. They argue that larger blocks are essential for Bitcoin to reach its true potential as a global payment system.
This is all pretty fascinating, but it also seems a bit confusing.
It can be, but it's important to remember that Bitcoin is constantly evolving and adapting.
So these different versions of Bitcoin are all kind of competing with each other.
In a way, yes. They each have their pros and cons, and it's up to individuals to decide which one they prefer.
This makes me wonder, are there any other Bitcoin variants out there?
There are a bunch, but most of them haven't gotten as popular as Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin SV.
Okay, so these two are the main players in the Bitcoin variant game.
For now, yes, but who knows what the future holds.
That's true. The world of Bitcoin is full of surprises.
Exactly. And that brings us to another important aspect of Bitcoin, the Lightning Network.
Lightning Network, what's that all about?
Remember earlier we talked about how Bitcoin transactions can sometimes be slow and expensive?
Yeah, because of the limited block size and all that.
Right. Well, the Lightning Network is a solution that tries to fix those problems.
How does it work?
Imagine instead of broadcasting every single transaction to the whole Bitcoin network, you create a separate channel with the person you're sending money to.
Like a private line for Bitcoin payments.
Precisely, this channel is like a mini ledger where you can record lots of transactions between you two without clogging up the main Bitcoin blockchain.
So it's like taking those transactions off the main highway and putting them on a side road.
That's a great analogy. These channels can stay open for as long as you need, allowing for tons of back and forth transactions.
And then when you're done, you settle up on the main Bitcoin blockchain.
Exactly. The final balance is recorded on the blockchain, but all those other transactions happen off-chain, making the network less crowded.
That sounds super efficient. So is that why people are saying the Lightning Network is a game changer?
Absolutely. It tackles one of Bitcoin's biggest limitations, scalability, by moving transactions off-chain. The Lightning Network can handle way more payments, making Bitcoin more practical for everyday use.
This makes me think, could I buy like a coffee using the Lightning Network?
Theoretically, yes. If the coffee shop accepts Lightning Network payments, you could pay for your coffee instantly with very small fees.
That's pretty amazing. It's like bringing Bitcoin into the world of everyday purchases.
Exactly. And that's just one example of what the Lightning Network can do.
So what are some other things it can be used for?
Well, it can be used for things like instant messaging payments, streaming money, and even machine-to-machine payments.
Wave machines can send Bitcoin to each other?
With the Lightning Network, it's becoming a reality. Imagine a vending machine that automatically restocks itself by sending Bitcoin to a supplier.
That's straight out of a sci-fi movie.
I know it's incredible. The Lightning Network is opening up so many possibilities for Bitcoin.
This is all so exciting, but is the Lightning Network perfect? Are there any downsides?
Well, like any technology, there are trade-offs.
Like what?
One potential downside is the need for both people to have a Lightning Network channel open.
So if I want to send a Lightning payment to someone, they need to be set up for it too.
That's right. It's not as simple as just sending Bitcoin to any address on the blockchain.
Okay, that makes sense. Are there any other limitations?
Another thing to consider is the potential for channel capacity issues.
Channel capacity, what does that mean?
Each Lightning Network channel has a limit on how much Bitcoin can be sent through it. If you exceed that limit, you need to close the channel and open a new one.
So it's like a pipeline with a limited flow rate.
Exactly. However, this is being addressed with ongoing development and improvements to the Lightning Network protocol.
Okay, so there are some limitations, but it sounds like the benefits are bigger, especially for faster and cheaper transactions.
That's a fair assessment.
This deep dive into the Lightning Network has been really eye-opening. I'm starting to see how it could change the way we use Bitcoin.
It's definitely a fascinating technology with huge potential. Welcome back to our Bitcoin adventure.
I'm ready for more. I want to learn about the technical stuff, like how does Bitcoin mining actually work?
Okay, so picture a giant digital puzzle that needs to be solved to add new transactions to the Bitcoin blockchain.
Okay, I'm imagining like a massive jigsaw puzzle.
That's a good start. Now imagine that thousands of people all over the world are trying to solve this puzzle at the same time.
Wow, that's a lot of competition.
It is, and whoever solves it first gets to add a new block of transactions to the blockchain.
And they get Bitcoin as a reward, right?
Exactly. That's what motivates miners to put in all that effort and computing power.
But what kind of puzzle is it? Is it like Sudoku or something?
Not quite. The puzzle involves finding a special number called a nonce.
A nonce. What's that?
It's just a random number that, when combined with the other data in the block, creates a specific output.
Specific output? What do you mean?
Okay, so the Bitcoin network has rules that determine what a valid block looks like.
Rules like a code of conduct for Bitcoin blocks.
Exactly. One of those rules is that the output of a mathematical function when applied to the block data has to be below a certain threshold.
A mathematical function, hold on, that sounds kind of complicated.
It's basically a way to turn any data into a unique string of characters. It's like a digital fingerprint for the block data.
Okay, so it's like a digital fingerprint, and the Bitcoin network needs this fingerprint to meet certain criteria for the block to be valid.
Exactly. Miners are trying to find a nonce that, when added to the block data, creates a valid fingerprint.
So it's like trying to find the right key for a lock. You keep trying different keys until one works.
Perfect analogy. The first miner to find the right nonce gets to add the block to the blockchain and wins the Bitcoin reward.
That's pretty clever. But I've heard that Bitcoin mining uses a ton of electricity. Isn't that bad for the environment?
That's a valid concern. Bitcoin mining does use a lot of energy, especially as more miners join the network.
So is there anything being done to make it more eco-friendly?
Yes, a lot of miners are now switching to renewable energy sources like solar and wind power to reduce their carbon footprint.
That's good to hear. So how do you actually send and receive Bitcoin?
That's where Bitcoin wallets come in.
Right, we talked about wallets before, but how do they actually work?
It's like an email account. It has a unique address that you use to send and receive Bitcoin.
So it's like my Bitcoin bank account number.
Exactly. To receive Bitcoin, you just give someone your wallet address.
And to send Bitcoin.
You enter the recipient's wallet and address the amount you want to send, and then confirm the transaction.
Sounds pretty easy, but how do I get a Bitcoin wallet?
There are lots of different types of Bitcoin wallets available, each with its own pros and cons.
Can you give me some examples?
Sure. One type is a software wallet, which is basically an app on your phone or computer.
So it's like a digital version of my real wallet.
Exactly. Software wallets are convenient and easy to use, but they can be vulnerable to hacking if someone gets into your phone or computer.
Okay, so I got to make sure my devices are secure.
Absolutely. Another type is a hardware wallet.
A hardware wallet, what's that?
It's a little device that looks like a USB stick. It's designed to store your Bitcoin offline.
Offline? Why is that important?
Because it means your Bitcoin isn't connected to the internet, so hackers can't steal it.
So a hardware wallet is like a super safe for my Bitcoin.
You could say that they're considered the most secure way to store your Bitcoin.
That makes sense. But what about those websites where you buy and sell Bitcoin? Are those safe?
Those are called cryptocurrency exchanges.
Right, exchanges. I've heard of those, but I don't really know how they work.
Cryptocurrency exchanges are platforms where you can buy, sell, and trade Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies.
So it's like a stock market for Bitcoin.
Exactly. Exchanges are a convenient way to get started with Bitcoin, but you got to choose a reputable and secure exchange.
How do I know if an exchange is reputable?
Look for ones that have been around for a while, have a good track record, and strong security measures.
Got it. But are there risks with using exchanges? I've heard stories about them getting hacked.
It's true that exchanges can be targets for hackers. That's why it's so important to choose an exchange with good security.
Like what kind of security?
Things like two-factor authentication, cold storage for funds, and regular security audits.
Okay, so I need to do my research before choosing an exchange.
Absolutely. And remember, you should never keep a lot of Bitcoin on an exchange.
Why not?
Because if the exchange gets hacked, you could lose your Bitcoin.
Yikes. That's scary.
It's generally recommended to transfer your Bitcoin to a personal wallet once you buy it on an exchange.
So exchanges are good for buying and selling, but I should keep my Bitcoin in a personal wallet for the long term.
Exactly. That way you have more control and you're not relying on someone else for security.
This is all making a lot more sense now.
Great. And remember, if you ever have any questions about Bitcoin, there are tons of resources available online and within the Bitcoin community.
Awesome. I'll check those out. This has been
Wow.
really helpful. I'm starting to understand all this technical stuff.
I'm glad you're finding it informative.
Oh, yeah. We talked about different types of Bitcoin, like Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin SV. Do they have their own wallets and exchanges too?
That's a great question. And yes, they do.
So it's like a whole separate world for each one.
Exactly. Each Bitcoin variant has its own blockchain, its own community of developers and users, and its own wallets and exchanges.
Wow, that's a lot to wrap my head around.
It can be, but that's what makes Bitcoin so exciting and dynamic.
True. But it also makes me realize how important safety and security are with all this.
Definitely, you have to be aware of the risks and take steps to protect yourself.
Can you give me some tips on how to stay safe in the Bitcoin world?
Sure, here are a few key things to keep in mind. First, always choose strong passwords for your Bitcoin wallets and exchanges.
Like passwords with capital letters, numbers, and symbols.
Exactly, and don't use the same password for multiple accounts.
Okay, what else?
Be careful about phishing scams.
Phishing scams? What are those?
They're tricks to try and get you to give away your personal information, like your passwords or private keys.
So how do I avoid falling for those?
Never click on links in emails from people you don't know. Always check the website address before you type in any personal info, and be wary of offers that sound too good to be true.
Okay, that makes sense. Anything else?
Keep your software and hardware up to date.
You mean like installing the latest updates for my phone and computer?
Exactly. Updates often include security patches that protect you from vulnerabilities.
Got it. I'll
Wow.
keep everything updated. What else?
Be careful about what you share online.
Like, don't post my Bitcoin wallet address on social media.
Exactly. The more you share about your Bitcoin, the more vulnerable you are to attacks.
Okay, I'll remember that. Any other tips?
Finally, always back up your Bitcoin wallets.
Back them up. How do you do that?
Most wallets let you create a backup phrase or file that you can use to restore your wallet if something happens to your device.
So it's like a spare key for my Bitcoin.
Precisely keep your backup phrase somewhere safe.
I will. Thanks for all these safety tips.
You're welcome. Remember, staying safe with Bitcoin means being careful and aware.
I'm definitely feeling more informed and a lot safer now.
That's great to hear.
This has been a super helpful deep dive. I'm starting to see how all the pieces of the Bitcoin puzzle fit together.
Me too. It's a complicated system, but with a little effort, anyone can understand it.
Welcome back to our final Bitcoin exploration.
We've gone through a lot, the technical stuff, the security stuff, even those different Bitcoin versions.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride, and I'm ready for the last leg of our Bitcoin journey.
Okay, today, let's think bigger about Bitcoin, like how it could change the future and what ethical questions it brings up.
That sounds interesting. When you say change the future, what do you actually mean?
Well, think about how we use money now. Everything from groceries to sending money overseas depends on the usual financial systems.
Yeah, I guess I never really thought about it like that.
Bitcoin is different. It offers a way to do things without banks and across borders.
So it's a totally new way to think about money.
Exactly. Some people think Bitcoin could completely change the financial industry.
Change it how?
Like a total makeover, for example. Bitcoin could make it easier and cheaper to send money to other countries, especially for people who don't have bank accounts.
That would be amazing.
It would be like having a global currency that everyone can use.
Yeah.
It's a powerful idea, and it's driving a lot of innovation with Bitcoin.
So Bitcoin could help people who are left out of the current financial system.
Exactly. It could level the playing field and give everyone access to financial services.
That's a really cool idea.
It is, but we also have to think about the downsides of Bitcoin.
Downsides, like what?
Well, remember how we talked about Bitcoin's price going up and down a lot?
Yeah, it can be like a roller coaster.
That makes it risky for people and businesses.
So you're not guaranteed to make money with Bitcoin.
Definitely not. It's an investment with risks, just like anything else.
Okay, I got it. What other downsides are there?
Another concern is the impact of Bitcoin mining on the environment.
Right, it uses a lot of energy.
Yes, and as Bitcoin grows, it'll probably use even more.
So it's like we have to weigh the good things about Bitcoin against its impact on the planet.
Exactly. It's a complicated issue with no easy answers.
I'm starting to realize that Bitcoin is way more than just digital money.
Absolutely. It's a technology that could change the world for good or bad.
So it's important to understand both the good and the bad about Bitcoin.
Definitely. And to talk about its role in society.
This deep dive has really made me think. It's incredible how much I've learned about Bitcoin in just these few episodes.
It's been great exploring Bitcoin with you.
I think we've covered pretty much everything about Bitcoin now, right?
I think we've hit the major points from the technical details to the big picture stuff.
I feel a lot more confident about Bitcoin now.
That's great to hear. Knowledge is power, and the more you know about Bitcoin, the better you'll be able to handle this exciting world.
So what's the main takeaway from our Bitcoin deep dive?
Bitcoin is a game changer. It has the power to change how we think about and use money. It's complicated, with both good and bad sides. But one thing's for sure, Bitcoin is here to stay, and it'll keep shaping the future.
Wow, well said. I can't wait to see what happens with Bitcoin.
Me too. It's just the beginning.
And that wraps up our Bitcoin deep dive. Do you have any topic that you would like to have explained? Drop it in the comments.